the Sports Renegades podcast on SportstownChicago.com.
Here come the Hawks, the mighty Blackhawks. Take the attack, yeah, and we'll back you, Blackhawks. You're flying high now, so let's wrap it up. Let's go, you Hawks. Move on. Now all the Hawks. Here come the Hawks. Here comes the Hawks. Here comes the Hawks. Here comes the Hawks. Here they come, moving, weaving, flying high and throwing spray. Waves, flashing sticks, crashing, trying for the play. And the Blackhawks take control. There's a shot and a goal. Here come the Hawks, the mighty Blackhawks. Take the attack, yeah, and we'll back you, Blackhawks. You're flying high now, so let's wrap it up. Let's go, you Hawks. Move on. Now on the Hawks. Here come the Hawks. Here comes the Hawks. Here comes the Hawks.
Renegade, never been afraid to say what's on my mind at any given time of day, 'cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to talk about anything. Renegade. Never been afraid to say what's on my mind at any given time of day, 'cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to holler about anything.
Welcome in to the Sports Renegades here on SportstownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
We had such a good game yesterday as the Blackhawks beat the Nashville Predators 4-3.
In double overtime.
In double overtime, of course, in the playoffs. You know, you just keep playing overtimes until somebody scores, and they went the first overtime, and after nobody scored after that one, I thought maybe this would be pretty long, just like I think in a couple years ago, the Hawks had a triple overtime
That
game.
was last year against the Blues.
Right. Yeah, that was crazy. I don't know if I have a feeling that we're going to see more overtimes with the Nashville Predators, too.
Yeah, they said the Hawks have an NHL, a current NHL streak. They've played 12 consecutive playoff series that have had at least one game go into overtime.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And it was also amazing that they ended up winning the game. You know, after being down 3-0 at the end of the first period, you pull Corey Crawford and you have Scott Darling in there, and he was Darling. He did a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, he was making save after save, and like he was just casually making these saves. He wasn't like making it look spectacular or anything.
Right.
Anything that just got to him was being stopped, and he made some fantastic saves to keep him in the game. I mean, 42 saves.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen usually, especially with your backup goalie.
Yeah, how often do you see a goalie that makes 42 consecutive saves? I mean, let alone stopping all 42 shots.
Right. I thought that was awesome. And, you know, of course, it was really interesting, too. You know, Nashville scores 3 goals in the first period, then Chicago comes back and scores 3 goals in the second, and then there's no scoring in the third or the first overtime, because that's when all the teams were really trying not to let up any goals, especially the goalies. They both did a good job in those 2 periods.
Yeah, that first overtime, those refs were making some pretty odd calls and odd no calls. Like when I forget who it was. I remember Duncan Keith tripped someone when he was about to get on a breakaway, and then there was no call. Right. And then Seth Jones goes and slaps someone on the Hawks in the leg with a stick, and he gets called for a trip.
Yeah, there was also a play a little later on, unless this is the one that you were talking about, where the Hawks, I forget exactly what happened, but it was hit, and the announcers were saying that it could have been a penalty shot for Nashville. I think that was later on in the third or second period.
I mean, and Nashville had been in the box all game. I mean, that second period, guys kept going to the box. It was very undisciplined play, and both teams seemed to settle down, and then Duncan Keith finally fired the game winner. And
from pretty far away, too. I was surprised.
Yeah. Surprised that it wasn't like on a deflection or anything.
Right.
And they said that in his 768 career regular season games, he has 1 overtime goal. And in 94 playoff games, he has 1 overtime goal.
Right. Of course, there was 3 other games on. I didn't watch the first 2. I did watch a lot because I was switching between, because by that time the Cubs game and Bulls game were over. I was switching between the Calgary and Vancouver game and the Chicago game, and I missed Calgary's score, but I guess they scored with like 23 seconds left to take the lead, which is pretty cool because I don't like Vancouver. So
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Also, just a reminder, a little later on in the show, Ryan Risky and I both filled out that NHL bracket challenge thing that NHL.com has, and we'll let you know who we picked, and then we'll see who does better between us in that. I don't think they have one for the NBA, unfortunately.
Doubtful.
Just because they don't want to. So
yeah, well,
I mean, I don't know why, because I guess because you could technically do the same thing. It's the same scenario as hockey, where it's 7-game series.
Yeah, I think they just feel that people would be accusing them of stealing the idea from March Madness, and then it wouldn't be as popular, and then that would make the NBA look bad when something in college basketball is more popular.
Yeah, that's true. So Calgary won 2-1 at Vancouver. The Islanders beat the Washington Capitals.
4-1.
That was 4-1, and Montreal beat Ottawa 4-3. So.
Yeah, and Montreal actually scored an own goal in that game.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh man, that must have made the fans upset, but at least they ended up winning the game.
Especially since Montreal's got the loudest fans in the NHL.
And I don't think Ottawa is very good. Weren't they a low seed in the playoffs? I think they were the 7th or 8th seed. I think they're one of the wild cards.
I think they were the 6th seed because Pittsburgh was the 8th.
So maybe not the wild card.
And
I'm trying to think.
I think the Islanders were the 7.
Oh, were they?
Because I think they play the Lightning, I think, and the Lightning were the 2.
Okay. Yeah. So those are some of the other games. There's games on tonight. I know. The rest of the games, because there was 4 games yesterday, 4 games today.
The
Minnesota
Blues
and
the Wild. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting series. I got the Wild winning that series.
Oh, you do?
I
do have St. Louis winning, but I think I have it going 6 or 7. I would love the Minnesota Wild to win that. That would be a much easier second-round matchup for the Hawks if they end up winning.
Yeah, I just think Minnesota's a team on the rise. They're young players that were the guys that were like really young 2 years ago when they played the Hawks, when the Hawks won the Stanley Cup in 2013. Those guys are now 2 years more groomed into the league, and they've just gotten a lot better, more experience. I mean, last year they played very well against the Blackhawks in that 6-game series. So
they did, and they definitely turned it on late too, especially after the All-Star break for the NHL. Because the Wild were pretty far down, but they ended up almost overtaking the Hawks at one point with like a week left in the season.
And Devin Dubnyk has been fantastic in goal for them. They've got plenty of scoring in Jason Pominville, Thomas Vanek, Zach Parise. And their defense has been getting stronger because it's been a lot of young players that are finally maturing, and Ryan Suter doesn't have to be the guy all the time now, or the only guy.
Right. So what did you think of Patrick Kane's play as he came back? I know he had 2 assists.
Yeah, he had 2 assists. He looked He looked really good, and I mean, his presence on the ice just helped them a lot. And I was just interested about benching Antoine Vermette.
Right.
You give up a first-round pick and a young defenseman. Then when you get him, you use him incorrectly. You pay a fortune for him, and then you bench him for the playoffs. Great logic.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
I thought that he was that.
Well, now who replaced him on the roster then?
Well, no, he was just a healthy scratch in that game.
Right.
Kane.
Okay, Kane.
I mean, Kane came back. I was just surprised that they had benched him because, I mean, it had been interesting to see how Vermette played with Kane.
Yeah, and it ended up working out. I mean, not in the first period. Nothing went well for the Hawks in the first period.
No,
but after that,
2 of those 3 goals, you couldn't even blame on Corey Crawford. I mean, the first one, Michael Roosevelt, just for whatever reason, let a defenseman skate around him, and he didn't think that he needed to play
that first
defense.
one, I think you could see it a mile away that it was going to be a goal.
Yeah, because Roosevelt just forgot that he was supposed to play defense, and then that third one was tipped.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you can't fault goalies on any tips. I think the second one was the one Crawford came way too far out of the net on.
And of course, you know, a lot of people are like, well, why is Corey Crawford starting the second game? Because he's the better goalie.
Yeah, because he's the starting goaltender. I mean,
I know. It's not like it probably wasn't even a question for Coach Quenneville.
No,
I'm sure they thought, you know, Corey Crawford's starting the second game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, do you really think Darling's going to do that again? I mean, sometimes when goalies come into a game, even after the other one was ineffective, that a lot of times they play really well. I mean, a lot of times they usually don't play really bad. I mean, they usually do pretty well. I mean, I noticed it a lot, especially with the Hawks when a goalie gives up 3 in the first period and then they bring in the backup and he doesn't allow any more goals.
Right.
And
Scott Darling had 42 saves.
Yeah, I mean that was just phenomenal what he did to keep his team in it. I mean, Corey Crawford's the starter. I mean,
right.
It's not like he won a Stanley Cup or anything. I mean, he knows how to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, they say the Stanley Cup is the one trophy that you don't know how to win until you truly win it. Like, you think you might know how to, you really don't until you win it. And that's what helps the Blackhawks. I mean, a lot of players, when they've lost in Game 7 of the finals, and then they won it a few years later, they said they really had no idea what it took to win it, even when they lost in Game 7 of the finals.
Right, and the 4 goals for the Hawks, just in case you didn't know, for people who are listening, Hjalmarsson got the first one, correct?
Mm-hmm. Then it was Sharp.
And then Sharp, Taves, and then Keith with the overtime winner.
Yeah, the Hjalmarsson one was the one I found real interesting because he never runs up to the front of the net and shoots. All of his shots come from the blue line because he's a defensive-minded defenseman, so he never really goes in like that. And he went right in front of the net and got a one-timer and buried it past Pecorine.
And Nashville's goals, they had 1 from Victor Stahlberg and then 2 from Wilson. So
Colin Wilson.
That's how it goes for them.
It was a really, I mean, it was kind of a game where both teams needed to settle down, and they did that. Where the Hawks, they settled down after the first period, where Nashville settled down after the second period, and then it was a really well-played series. I mean, I think it's going to be more of a low-scoring series from now on, because I think both teams have settled down.
Sure, yeah.
And I read that Nashville has only won 2 playoff series in their franchise, and they were both round 1 wins. They've never won in the second round.
That's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, I think they've only been around for 15 years.
Right. And, you know, it's really, it's just, you know, it's interesting that a team, you know, in Nashville, Tennessee has a hockey team, and it's just kind of weird. I feel like they should have, another team in Canada or something.
Right, and you and me were talking about this on the way to the Cub game on Tuesday, how the Nashville president was more worried about the national anthem than the actual game itself.
Right.
And then making a big deal about it to the media, our fans are going to be singing the national anthem, so that Blackhawk fans aren't going to be cheering during it.
I heard that they didn't even get the fans didn't even sing it right. That's what I heard on the radio on the way down. I didn't see the national anthem.
Neither did I. I was watching Arrow. I turned the game on, and it was 1-0 Nashville.
Right. I didn't see the national anthem, but I heard on the radio that they apparently, at least it sounded like, they didn't get the words completely right.
And I'm sure the Blackhawks fans that were there were just laughing.
I'm sure they were cheering too. Obviously, you wouldn't overpower because there was more Predators fans there.
No,
obviously, but
did you?
Still, it's pretty cool.
The funny thing is, so the next game is tomorrow. Right. Ticket prices dropped a lot after they lost. You can get tickets now for $75 a ticket.
Wow.
For a playoff game.
That's pretty good.
Which my thought is Friday night, Blackhawks fans will just buy those, leave work early, and head down or take the day off.
I think they probably would. It's only about 8 or 9 hour drive.
Right, or you could get on a 2-hour plane, except, it's really not that bad. And when you can't even pay $75 a ticket for a regular season game at the United Center.
Right. $75, you're looking at standing room only.
Exactly.
In the regular season. not even playoff ticket.
Yeah.
Standing room only.
Standing room only, maybe. Where now you're going, probably not a terrible seat for $77.
Yeah.
Where we were talking about this with the Bulls potentially playing Milwaukee before it was confirmed with their win yesterday. That, I mean, even though they're going to be playing in Nashville, that's not typically a roads like a normal road series because you have so many Hawks fans.
It's not like you're going all the way to the West Coast or East Coast.
So, or playing a team in Canada. Those aren't like typical road games.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll take a look at our brackets that we filled out for the NHL Bracket Challenge. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.